What's up, addicts? In this video, we're going to be recapping the game between the Battlehawks and the Defenders, going over all the fantasy stats and relevant information in this one. But hey, before we get started, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Anyway, let's get right into it. A pretty uneventful game in this one. Final score for DC 15-6 for St. Louis. Pretty depressing day to be a St. Louis Battlehawks fan after having such an impressive run over the past 4 weeks. Come in and really just completely flame out on offense in this one. DC Defenders played up to their name, defended the ball really well, but this was probably one of the worst offensive showings that we've seen in the entire year. Really nothing from either side of the ball in terms of offensive power, and just overall going to be very interesting to try to evaluate these teams, especially the Defenders going forward. Their defense played great on this day, but we can't expect that every single week. Their offense is going to need to do something. We'll get into the stats a little bit here in a little bit, but overall, pretty disappointed in how the Battlehawks performed in this one. Their defense played okay, but overall their offense really just wasn't anywhere near what we were hoping or expecting to see. They're going to need to go back to the drawing board, figure out what they did wrong here, and figure out how to avoid letting it happen again, or else they're going to quickly lose that front runner status in the East. This is definitely a downing game in terms of their power rankings and just their overall prospects going forward. Now have a three-way tie in the East for the top playoff spot. We have St. Louis, DC, and New York all at 3-2, and we'll see how this ends up playing out. It's going to be very interesting going into the second half of the season. Let's get into the St. Louis Battlehawks stats in this one. Beginning with Jordan Teamu, 15-25 in this one, 60% completion percentage, 174 yards. Didn't press the issue too much, only 7 yards per attempt. No touchdowns or interceptions in this one. Also had 5 carries for 31 yards. They were able to move the ball down the field a decent bit, but they had a missed field goal, multiple failed fourth down conversions near the end zone. Just disappointing day all around from St. Louis. Matt Jones, 13 carries for 70 yards, averaging 5.4 yards a carry. Looked pretty good in this one. Christian Michael doing basically the same thing, 12 carries for 69 yards. Both of them had a catch. Christian Michaels was for 14 yards. Matt Jones was for nothing. Keith Ford, barely used, only 3 carries for 3 yards. Definitely not what we were hoping to see in terms of his improvement, but overall it's at least good to know that this is still looking like a two-man show between Matt Jones and Christian Michael. You'll take the yards, decent amount of fantasy points just from yards alone, but no scores on the day. Jumping over to the receivers, LaDamian Washington ended up getting it done in this one. 5 catches on 8 targets for 114 yards, including a couple very acrobatic and athletic catches. LaDamian Washington definitely the main outside receiver going forward, as we kind of anticipated. Alonzo Russell did okay in this one, 3 catches, 27 yards. Brandon Riley, after coming up for a few weeks in a row, only 1 catch on the day for 17 yards. Nothing for Keith Mumphrey. And then DeMornay Pearson L, 3 targets, 2 catches for -1 yards. They just either the defenders had completely sold out to stop him and made Jordan Teamu go elsewhere, or he just didn't show up in this one, and it's quite depressing considering how well he's played most of the games this season. It's definitely going to be very interesting to see how this team rebounds. Tight end Marcus Lucas, 6 targets, only 2 catches for 3 yards. You're expecting way more there. So other than LaDamian Washington, you're probably pretty disappointed in the outcome that you got for any player on this team. Defense played okay. They definitely held the Defenders to a low amount of yardage, but weren't able to do enough to keep the Battlehawks offense, which wasn't doing enough, in the game, only scoring 6 points. That's just a bad reflection on the entire team. All right, we're going to jump over to the defenders now, but before we do that, if you do want to watch this game in its entirety but don't have time to watch the entire 3-hour replay, we've condensed the entire game for you, took out all the commercial breaks, all the dead time between plays, so make sure you check out the link in the description or the box above me to see that in its entirety. Anyway, let's get over to the defenders. All right, so Cardale Jones, the story of the day, played 2 drives and then was actually pulled in favor of Tyree Jackson. Tyree Jackson played the remainder of the game, went 9 for 14, 64% completion percentage, only 39 yards on the day. It's a putrid 2.8 yards per attempt. He did have a touchdown, but overall, just not what you expect to see from a quarterback. This is going to be a very interesting situation to monitor going forward. Cardale Jones was told at the end of the game is still their starter going forward, but they had a game plan to try to give Tyree Jackson a play. I mean, they won the game. Have to admit that. Definitely, want to be able to continue winning games, but Tyree Jackson is going to need to show a ton of improvement passing down the field, because 2.8 yards per attempt is not going to get it done for you, especially if the defense ever has a much less than stellar day as they did today. With the way that the defenders played, it covered up for a lot of the issues on offense. Now, one issue that did not exist on offense anymore is Jarrell Presley's play. Finally got a chance to show the world what he's about. We saw this a bit in week 1. Week 2 was a bit more depressed. He didn't get as many carries. Same thing for week 3. Week 4, he didn't play really at all. And then finally gets a fair share of carries in this one and proves that he is the better running back between him and Pumphrey. 15 carries on the day, 107 yards on the ground, 7.1 yards per carry. Also had 3 catches for 12 yards. No touchdowns in this one, but you'll take that production any day out of a running back that had looked to be dead in the water. Donnell Pumphrey getting the same amount of carries, but only 37 yards and no catches on the day. He had 1 run from DeAndre Tompkins for 28 yards. Eli Rogers had a couple of sweeps, 2 for 25. Definitely helped their day a little bit because there really wasn't any passing to speak of. Kari Lee, the guy there with the touchdown, 3 catches for 14 yards. Rashad Ross, only 2 targets for 11 yards. Eli Rogers, 1 target, 1 catch for 2 yards, and that's about it. There was no passing in this game for DC whatsoever. The only reason they won this game was because their defense continued to stand firm over and over and over again, and then Jarrell Presley was able to get enough play on the ground to get them into field goal range for most drives, and that's basically it. So very interesting to see how these teams respond going forward, and see if the defenders can do anything to fix this offense, because you cannot rely on your defense to bail you out this much. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you check out my website, fantasyaddictionnetwork.com. We just uploaded some stats last week. They're going to be updated for week 5. Today, you'll be able to see consistency charts which show which teams perform best against which position. Really helpful in determining our rankings, which will also be released later this week. So make sure you check that out. Completely free. Just got to make an account. So anyway, hit me up in the comment section below if you have any questions, and we'll see you in the next video.